Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Q&A with Timothy Wolfer for The Right Girls. My name's Jorge Paris. I'm on the program screening committee, and we are lucky enough to have Tim with us live to answer any of your questions. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. We loved your film. It was we talked about it a lot at the committee meetings, and you did an excellent job with it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So, can you tell us where this project kind of began from? Because I'm always fascinated with documentarians that happen to be in the right place at the right time to capture something like this, which was, I know you guys were going for something like this, but how did it happen?
You know, it really was almost more of a coincidence, if you can believe that. I had been seeing all of the tweets that Trump had been sending out about the caravan and really demonizing them. And I've spent the last 10 years working in migration and making films about migration. And so I knew a lot of that's not true. Most migrants are people that are just looking for a better future. So I decided that I had to go down and find the human side of the story. So I jumped on a plane and flew to southern Mexico and found the caravan. And within the first couple of hours of being there, I met these amazing women, and I was just super compelled to them. And they had found a sense of community despite being very scared and in a desperate situation. And I was just super fascinated and asked them if I could follow their story, and they agreed. And so I started following for a couple of days and a couple more days, and before I knew it, it was 6 weeks later, and they had made it to the border, and that's the film you see.
That's amazing. Were there moments where you kind of lost track of them along the way?
You know, the longest I think I just lost track of them was maybe 1 or 2 days, like 36-hour stretch maybe. But the caravan, part of the secret to the caravan was that they were trying to stay safe. So they would stay in groups. And so after the first couple of days, you know, they knew that I was making a film about them, and one of them had a cell phone, and so we could communicate and stuff. But it is surprising how fast a group of 7,000 people can actually move sometimes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And how big was the crew that you were working with?
So on the ground, it was just me. And then in Tijuana, a friend of mine did come down, and Steve and and helped me shoot some of the master interviews. But most of the production was just myself.
Whoa, that's amazing. I mean, as well, Tijuana's only the last portion of the film, really. So you were doing all that on your own. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how were you dealing with housing and bunking down at night?
So I would team up with other journalists along the way, and we would find hotels, split taxi cabs, just do like typical journalists would in those kinds of circumstances, and also, you know, sticking together for our own safety. So that's kind of how I went about that.
Could you tell us a little bit that you learned about of these groups that were part of the LGBTQ aid for the people in the caravan?
You're talking about groups that were there to assist?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think there was two groups that came to the assistance of the LGBT community. One was Raices, and they're based there in Texas. And once the caravan had reached Mexico City, they provided 2 buses so that they could get to the border quicker and hopefully safer. And that's, you know, shown in the film of them boarding these buses and making it. And then the other one that worked with Raices after that, specifically with the transgender women, was the Santa Fe Dreamers Project. And between the two of them, they provided legal assistance to a large majority of the transgender women, but then also to other people within the LGBT community.
It's amazing. So could you just, as a recap, kind of talk about Valentina and Joanna and Chantal, tell us where each one of them was coming from and kind of what where you met up with them in the process?
Yeah, all three of them, Valentina was from El Salvador, Chantal was from El Salvador, and Johanna Stefani is from uh, um, Honduras. And I met them in the southernmost state of Mexico. I forget the name right now, but that's where I first met up with them. And this was, they had all met up on the caravan. None of them, they didn't know each other beforehand, and so they had formed their little group. And I think that this was one of the first times that they had ever met anyone similar to themselves, and like been able to be out and open and proud, was kind of on this journey.
Wow. Wow. That must have been kind of a relief to get that group of people together so that you can kind of make it through this journey.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So as you were trying to go along and follow them through all of this, you did run across, well, you captured experiences of them not being able to get onto trucks that were carrying women and children and stuff like that. Could you talk a little bit about that?
All the way through the journey, they experience like extreme prejudices, which I think that it made it challenging. They were always the last to make it into camps at night. They were always the last to get food. They would hardly ever get rides, or if they did, they'd be the last ones to get rides. So it just made for a very tiring journey. I think I was watching the film again yesterday, and one of the things I noticed is so much of it is actually less about them moving and more of them sitting on the side of the road, waiting to move, right? Yeah. There's always a scene of them sitting somewhere, just kind of like last in line. And to make it even more complex, they would constantly be getting catcalls and yelled at, and people whistling at them, and it just made for a very scary trip for them, I'm sure. And it's a dangerous journey regularly for migrants, but this is just a whole nother level of complexity.
Yeah. And was there a few moments of like really extreme hostility that you ran across?
There were a few times that it was, I was very worried for them, what would happen. And even one time that I remember stopped filming because I didn't want to bring attention to them at that point. So that's always a tricky thing to do as a journalist, is to decide when we need to just back off, and because like I don't want to be part of a problem at all. But
yeah. Previous to this, what had you kind of done along this lines as far as documenting, going and inserting yourself in a situation and documenting?
Yeah, so my background is making films on migration. So my first film was called Adopting Haiti, and I followed a group of orphans that were evacuated out of Haiti in 2010, about a week and a half after that massive earthquake. And I filmed how Soledad O'Brien at CNN kind of pushed the State Department to get the kids evacuated sooner, and then to find out that the children still all had parents that were still alive, and that this orphanage was accepting children in that circumstance, and just looking at the ethics of that. And then from there, I've spent I have a production company now, and we focus on putting together like marketing and advocacy and educational films for humanitarian aid agencies. And I've worked a lot in Sub-Saharan Africa and Central America and Central Asia.
Are there any humanitarian aid agencies that you'd like to kind of bring up right now for anybody who would be interested in helping out?
Yeah, I think the one we've been pointing everyone to learn more information about these issues has been the Santa Fe Dreamers Project, obviously based in Santa Fe, and they really are the ones that are at the forefront of aiding the transgender community that's migrating to the U.S. And then in addition to them is Raíces, which is a Texas-based nonprofit. Both of them just do extraordinary work in this area.
Excellent. So back to the film, as the journey kind of comes towards the end, when we get to the border and everything, there's a little bit of a squabble that occurs, and it kind of centered around the idea that one of the girls was not actually trans, but was using acting like a trans person to get across the border and get asylum and everything. Is that something that you had witnessed anywhere else?
Yeah, I don't know if I think I see it as they were using that more as they were upset and insulting, you know, Chantal was insulting Valentina in that moment regarding that. There was no evidence. All of them were very much trans women, and so. But I think that you could see sometimes, you know, they're friends, but there's also tension through the film, and I think that comes out if you watch it again. Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, I took it as an attack, just kind of cutting down
yeah,
her, but it was a pretty powerful kind of culmination after all this traveling and everything that they kind of came to a head like that. Were there a lot of other? Yes.
I think that the other thing is that I realized that in that moment that it's a very human moment too. Like it's a dynamic situation, and like how would one of us handle that same situation? I don't know. So yeah, it's complicated.
At the border where so many people are gathered, did you also see other trans immigrants that were there? I imagine the population probably grew once you got there, because it was kind of a holding area almost.
Yeah, so the community had actually organized outside of Mexico City, and hence why Raíces had sent those buses and everything like that. And a few others did join up when they were in Tijuana, but the community kind of split off once they were in Tijuana and stayed as a group in the pack and stuff. Yeah.
Um, and is there something kind of that you have noticed in all your immigration documenting and everything, a common thread that you've seen with all these people trying to, you know, find their way after a disaster or a situation, and that you
Totally.
yeah.
At the end of the day, people who migrate anywhere, right? Whether you're going to the U.S. border, or if you're going across, you know, sub-Saharan Africa, or headed for Europe, you know, across the oceans, the biggest thing is that they are in such a desperate situation that most of us probably will never understand, and they just want a better future, and that's all we want, right? That's the American dream, is like we all want a better future for ourselves. And in this film, they just want to be able to express themselves freely. I mean, is that too much to ask for? So I think that that's the common thread that with my films that I hope to just humanize.
Yeah. And you know, sometimes this is portrayed as hordes of people coming towards our border, trying to push through and everything. I think a lot of people don't understand that these people are really putting their lives at risk through this whole journey. And it's a long journey for many of them. And then getting to the border, it doesn't stop there. It becomes even more harrowing. Um,
Yeah.
Is that something you agree with? And
100%. Yeah. And I think that uh, it was hard to watch, because you realize what they're going to find when they get to the border, but they have so much excitement and anticipation and just believe in themselves enough that it's all going to work out. And obviously in this film, it did all work out, but for at least for the moment. But it's that was hard to watch, because you knew that the caravan of 7,000 people most of them were never going to cross the border, which is the case. A lot of them are still sitting in southern Mexico, or sorry, northern Mexico.
Could you talk about, so you kind of caught up with them on the other side. Could you talk about how the women's process of getting into the country was for each one of them?
Yeah, so you see in the film, the group obviously got split up, the friends. Sorry for the spoiler alerts if anyone hasn't seen it, but the women got split up, and so I ended up having to follow Valentina, and that was just purely coming down to a logistical thing of where I was and how it all kind of played out for us. But so I followed her to the border, and then what she did is walked up to the Customs and Border Patrol that's standing there and said, "Hey, I fear for my life. I'd like to request asylum." And they took her in and detained her for about 3 months. And then in late February, I guess it would have been, she was finally released and sent to Des Moines, Iowa, where she had an uncle living. And I jumped a flight within, it was less than 3 days to meet her. And that's that last scene in the film, is just kind of like catching up with her straight out of detention.
And is there any update on any of them that you would like to tell us about?
You know, they're all still in the United States, and you know, Johanna and Valentina and like the others are very excited about the film coming out. We were able to secure a distribution deal, and it's coming out on Tuesday on iTunes and Amazon and a whole bunch of other places.
Oh, congratulations! That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Something to be really proud of. Is there anything that you're kind of looking into right now as a project in the future?
You know, I don't know. I think that telling stories, it will always be something based around migration or people looking for a better future. Like, I think that those are just the most beautiful stories to tell. And so I'll be looking for something like that. And then you know, I like journalism, and I'm a journalist. And so I'll find something that is those intersections.
And as far as your other work, is there a place that we can see some of that?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, you can find all that, wolferproductions.com. You can find some of our commercial work, and then also links to my previous films.
Is there anything else that you kind of want to bring up to anybody who would like to? I know you already told us about some of the aid places that we can visit. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up for somebody who wants to help along with the process of the LGBTQ immigration and that? Yeah,
get out and vote. I think that's the best thing we can all do in November.
Yeah, still it's a little stress-inducing. Is there anything that you had to cut from the film that you really, it was hard for you to lose?
Yeah, there was a scene. We were there in October, in the Day of the Dead celebration, and we, because I never wanted to go backwards in the story, we just could never find a good spot for that to strategically be placed in the film. So that celebration got cut from the film, unfortunately, because it's just such a joyous, fun moment. And like in such a hard film, like those are always wonderful to see.
Was there one particular day that was very difficult for you to shoot?
Wow. I think watching Sinai, and Sinai is another one of the friends that met up later in the film. Watching Sinai and Valentina cross the border was probably the most emotional moment for myself, just because you'd spent 6 weeks getting to know the women, and now, you know, just see them disappearing and not knowing what was going to happen, and having to wait several months to find out what happens. That was probably the hardest thing for sure.
In kind of finalizing the film, were there different iterations that you kind of had that you had to find your voice in the film a little bit differently? Was there kind of a first cut that was varied from this cut?
Yeah, so the editing of the film is interesting. It was an interesting process. I initially, when I got back, I put the film aside for 3 or 4 months, just to kind of like regain. When you make a film like this, you're kind of living vicariously, I feel, through other people, and so just kind of regain my own normal life and stuff. And then we kicked around how we were going to do it, and Siobhan, who's one of the producers on the film, she sat me down and was like, "We're just going to edit this." And so we worked on it for several months, and then submitted it to film festivals and stuff like that. And then we, Johnny Orlansky, who's one of the writers, came in, and he looked at it and he's like, "Well, if we change this and that, and we can make it even better." And so we kept tuning it in further and further, and I think the iterations that you're talking about was us tightening it up as more and more people got excited about the film and said, "Hey, here's how we can make it better." And so I just thank my top-notch team, Graham, AJ, like everybody who really just kind of like stepped up to make it happen.
That's excellent. We got a couple other questions. Did you run into people making documentaries or other journalists along the way? I know we talked about this a little bit, but was there parallel documentaries going on with you?
Yeah, journalism, there was obviously hundreds of journalists because it was such a big news story, if you remember. So there's hundreds of other journalists there. And then there were a few other documentary crews, and they were focusing on other aspects, whether it be like, mothers and their kids that are making the journey alone, or whatever it might have been. But there were several other crews. Vice News did a very nice documentary about a guy, I think he was 17 or so, making the journey, and you can Google that.
That's really good.
Yeah. So, but and we all kind of would team up and split resources where we could.
And if you were going to do an epilogue in a year, what would you want to include, and how would you plan it?
Yeah, because of time and budget and the logistics, I was only able to follow up with Valentina. And I'd love to follow up with Johanna, Sinai, and Chantal. I think that would be the thing we'd love to see.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience that we haven't discussed?
No, I think I just really appreciate you guys still putting on the festival. This is a huge honor, and we're excited to be here. I know it's hard for you guys with COVID and everything like that. So thank you so much for continuing to do this, and maybe next year I'll have to come to Austin.
Yeah, we would love to have you, and we really loved your film, and we are happy to be able to put this Q&A together. So we appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. And check out the film when it comes out on Tuesday. iTunes, Amazon, those are the best places.
And everybody, please spread the word about the film. You can post the trailer for the film. Is there a trailer circulating?
There is, yeah. And iTunes, there's pre-orders, and the more pre-orders we get, the higher we'll be ranked. So hopefully more people will see it higher in the banners on Tuesday.
Yeah, so if you want to help support this film, please kind of post it on your social media. Is there any particular social media outside of your website and everything that people should know
of? We have a Facebook, a Twitter, and an Instagram, and they're all the same, the same name. It's at The Right Girls Film. That's at The Right Girls Film.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Tim. It's been a pleasure, and we've enjoyed having you on to do this.
I appreciate it, and I apologize to the audience for the COVID here. So,
I'm easy with that, so I don't.
Okay. I was like, oh no! All right. Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you.